Welcome to a deep dive into powerful public speaking.
Oh, yes.
Specifically, we're going to unpack how to make sure every word you say hits the mark.
Okay.
We're diving into a chapter called Distinctness and Precision of Utterance. It doesn't sound that exciting,
Right.
but trust me, this stuff is gold.
You know, it's funny how we often spend so much time crafting the content of our speeches, but overlook the delivery.
Yeah.
How we deliver those words can be the difference between a presentation that puts people to sleep
Oh, yeah.
and one that truly sticks with them.
It's so true.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we're uncovering today.
Yes.
Have you ever wondered why some speakers can hold your attention effortlessly while others have you reaching for your phone?
Oh, yeah.
That's the magic we're about to decode.
Absolutely.
I love it.
This chapter really dives into the power of pronunciation.
Okay.
It breaks it down into three key elements: articulation, accentuation, and enunciation.
Okay.
Right from the start.
Yeah.
The author throws in this quote, "In man speaks God."
Ooh.
It's a powerful way to emphasize
Right.
how important using our speech effectively really is.
Okay, so let's break this down.
Sure.
Can you explain what those three elements actually mean?
Yeah,
Why are they so important if we want to be better speakers?
absolutely.
Okay.
Let's start with articulation.
Okay.
Think of it as the foundation of spoken language. It's all about forming those crisp, clear sounds so that every word is understood.
Yeah.
It's like building a house.
Okay.
If your bricks are wobbly,
Yeah.
the whole structure is going to suffer.
So it's like making sure we're not mumbling or
Yeah.
slurring our words together.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But I feel like I sometimes slip up on that, especially when I'm nervous.
Right?
Do you think that's common?
It's incredibly common.
Okay.
And you're right, nerves can definitely play a role.
Yeah.
This chapter points to a few reasons why people struggle with articulation
Okay.
sometimes.
Oh.
It's simply not being familiar with all the sounds of the English language.
Okay.
There are 44 basic sounds.
Wow.
And if we're not aware of them, it's like trying to speak a foreign language without knowing the alphabet.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It makes me feel a lot less alone in my pronunciation struggles.
Sure.
I'm also thinking about how we sometimes mix up similar sounds,
Right.
like soap and soap,
Exactly.
which this author talks about.
Yeah.
Is that a common articulation pitfall?
You're hitting on a crucial point.
Okay.
The author even includes a hilarious verse by Oliver Wendell Holmes
Oh, wow.
that pokes fun at these common vowel sound errors.
Okay.
It's a lighthearted way to make the point,
Yeah.
but it really highlights how easily we can make these mistakes.
Right.
Failing to distinguish between similar sounds is definitely a major culprit.
It's so true.
Yeah.
I'm already starting to see how much I need to pay attention to these little details.
Right.
What about accentuation?
Yeah.
You mentioned that earlier. How does that fit into all of this?
Accentuation is all about stressing the correct syllables in words.
Okay.
This is where you get things like invite versus infight.
Yeah.
Small change that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
The author emphasizes that mastering accentuation is a lifelong process.
Lifelong.
Yeah,
That sounds a little daunting,
it is.
but I guess it makes sense.
Right.
Language is constantly evolving.
Yes,
Are there any tips or strategies that we can use to improve our accentuation?
absolutely.
Okay.
The chapter suggests cultivating what it calls an alert ear. It's about becoming more aware of how others pronounce words correctly.
Okay.
Of course, the dictionaries are our best friend here.
Right.
Looking up word origins can also help us understand why certain syllables are stressed,
Okay.
making it easier to remember.
So it's about being more mindful and curious about language.
Exactly.
I like that approach. It feels a lot less like memorizing rules.
Right.
And more like a fascinating exploration.
Yes. And one practical tip they suggest
Okay.
is keeping a running list of words you commonly mispronounce
Okay.
and practicing them regularly.
Got it.
Think of it as your personalized pronunciation boot camp.
That's a fantastic idea.
Yeah,
I'm already thinking of a few words I need to add to my list.
good.
So we've covered articulation and accentuation.
Yes.
What about enunciation?
Okay.
You mentioned that it's about uttering all the sounds in a word, but how is that different from articulation,
Right.
which is also about making clear sounds?
Think of it this way. Wrong articulation is pronouncing the wrong sound entirely,
Okay.
like saying do instead of do.
Got it.
Wrong enunciation, on the other hand,
Yeah.
is more about omitting or adding sounds,
Right?
even if you're forming the correct sounds otherwise.
Okay. I see the distinction.
Okay.
So it's about making sure we're not swallowing syllables
Right.
or dropping sounds at the end of words.
Exactly.
That's something I've definitely noticed in myself and others.
Have you ever caught yourself doing that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's one of those sneaky habits that can creep in without us even realizing it.
Right.
But as the author points out,
Yeah.
it can be incredibly distracting for the listener.
Okay.
They use a humorous example of a preacher dropping final consonants. My text may be found.
Okay.
It makes a point in a lighthearted way,
Right.
but it highlights how important clear enunciation is for effective communication.
It's funny because we've all heard people speak like that,
Yes.
but it's easy to forget how jarring it can be.
Right.
What are some ways we can train ourselves to enunciate more clearly?
The chapter emphasizes the power of attentive practice. It's about slowing down,
Okay.
being deliberate with our speech,
Mm-hmm.
and focusing on shaping each syllable distinctly,
Okay.
almost like savoring the sounds of each word.
So it's like a mindfulness exercise for our mouths.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
But how do we make sure we're not overdoing it?
I don't want to sound like I'm reading from a dictionary every time I speak.
You bring up a really important point.
Yeah.
The chapter actually cautions against going overboard with enunciation.
Okay.
Over-enunciating can sound unnatural and choppy,
Right.
like a robot trying to speak.
Yeah.
The goal is to find that sweet spot between clarity and smoothness.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So how do we find that balance?
Right.
Any tips from our trusty source?
They suggest practicing reading aloud
Okay.
while paying attention to both pronunciation and the overall flow of the speech.
Got it.
It's about finding that rhythm where each word is clear,
Yeah.
but the speech still feels natural and engaging.
That reminds me of practicing a musical instrument. You need to master the individual notes.
Yeah.
But also learn to play them smoothly and expressively.
You've got it.
Yeah.
It's all about finding that flow
Mm-hmm.
and making our speech both comprehensible and captivating.
This has been so insightful.
Oh, good.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
From the nitty-gritty details of articulation to the art of finding that perfect balance in our pronunciation.
Right.
But there's still more to uncover.
Yes. Welcome back to our deep dive. We've laid the groundwork for understanding the building blocks of clear and effective speaking. Now, are you ready to put all this knowledge into action?
Absolutely. The chapter we're exploring has a whole section on exercises, which I'm really excited about. Where do you think we should start?
Let's kick things off with an exercise that focuses on consonant clarity. The chapter suggests repeating this phrase rapidly. Foolish Flavius Flushing feverishly fiercely found fault with Flora's frivolity. It's a real tongue twister. Give it a try out loud and let's see how it goes.
Okay, here we go. Foolish Flavius flushing feverishly.
Wow.
That's tougher than it looks, but I can already feel how it's making me pay more attention to those tricky consonant sounds.
Exactly. The key is to slow down at first, really focus on each sound, and gradually increase your speed as you become more comfortable. The repetition helps build muscle memory for those sounds so it becomes more natural over time. And don't worry if you stumble at first, it's all part of the process.
That makes me feel better. I'm ready for another challenge. What's next?
All right, let's try one that focuses on the L sound. Blue-black blinkers blocked Black Blondin's eyes. This one might seem a bit easier on the surface, but pay attention to how clearly you're pronouncing those L's. It's a subtle difference, but it can have a big impact on your overall clarity.
Blue-black blinkers blocked Black Blondin's eyes. You're right, that L sound is sneakier than I thought. I can feel my tongue working hard to get it right.
That's a good sign you're becoming more aware of those subtle movements in your mouth,
Yeah.
which is essential for clear articulation. Now let's switch gears and explore some vowel sounds. This next exercise is interesting because it asks you to consider the U sound in few and new. Say them aloud a few times and think about which one is closer to the correct pronunciation of New York.
Few, new. New York. Okay. I think I tend to say New York, but when I compare it to few and new, the U sound in new does seem closer, so maybe it should be more like New York. What do you think?
You're absolutely on the right track. This exercise isn't about finding the one correct way to pronounce New York, because regional accents and dialects naturally influence pronunciation. The real point is to make you more aware of the subtle ways we shape vowel sounds and how those tiny variations can impact clarity.
That makes so much sense. It's like fine-tuning an instrument. The slightest adjustment can change the whole sound. And it reminds me of that verse by Oliver Wendell Holmes we talked about earlier. Those small differences in vowel sounds can completely change the meaning of a word, which can lead to some pretty funny misunderstandings.
Precisely. And speaking of meaning, this chapter includes a fascinating passage from Shakespeare's Hamlet. that really highlights how crucial enunciation is for conveying emotion and intention. Remember that scene where Hamlet tells his friends he's going to put on an antic disposition and asks them to swear secrecy?
Yes, that scene is so powerful. He uses all those vague phrases like, well, we know, and we could, and if we would. But it's not just the words themselves, it's the way he says them that really sticks with you.
You've hit the nail on the head the way Shakespeare wrote those lines, coupled with how Hamlet would have delivered them on stage, adds layers of meaning. It emphasizes his deliberate choice to act a certain way while also hinting at the underlying turmoil he's experiencing. It's like he's speaking in code, and his careful enunciation is the key to unlocking those hidden layers.
Wow, I've never thought about it that way before. It's amazing how even simple phrases can become so much more powerful when delivered with clear intention and precise enunciation.
It's a masterclass in using language to convey multiple meanings at the same time. And it's a great reminder that we can do the same in our own communication. It's not just about saying the words, it's about imbuing them with meaning through our tone and delivery.
Speaking of delivering impactful messages, the chapter also encourages us to read aloud a powerful speech by Maximilien Robespierre, paying close attention to pronunciation, pacing, and overall flow. I'm curious to see how those techniques come into play with such a dramatic piece.
Yes, this speech is a fantastic exercise in finding that balance between clarity and smoothness that we talked about earlier. It's full of bold pronouncements and rhetorical flourishes. So the challenge is to convey the passion and intensity of the words without overdoing it. The goal is to sound natural and engaging while maintaining that clarity of pronunciation.
It sounds like a fun challenge, and I'm ready to give it a try. But before we jump into that, is there anything else we should keep in mind as we practice these exercises?
One thing the chapter emphasizes is that striving for perfect pronunciation is a balancing act. It cautions against overemphasizing every syllable, as that can make you sound unnatural and a bit pedantic, almost like a robot. It's about finding that sweet spot where your speech is both clear and natural.
Right. It's like you said earlier, we don't want to sound like we're reading from a dictionary. It's about integrating these techniques in a way that feels authentic and engaging. So, are you ready for me to tackle Robespierre's speech?
I'm ready when you are. Go ahead and give it your best shot, paying close attention to your articulation, accentuation, and enunciation. And remember, breathe, let the words flow naturally, and don't be afraid to put your own personality into it.
Wow, that was quite an experience. It felt like those words were jumping off the page. I could really feel the weight of what he was saying, the conviction in his voice. It's amazing how practicing these techniques can not only improve our clarity, but also deepen our understanding and appreciation of the language itself.
I agree with you. It's like we're unlocking a whole new level of communication, both with ourselves and with others. And it's inspiring to think about how these seemingly small adjustments can make such a big difference in how our message is received.
Absolutely. I'm feeling so motivated to keep practicing and refining these skills. What's fascinating is how we've gone from focusing on the technical aspects of pronunciation to experiencing how those technical elements can bring such powerful language to life.
It's a perfect illustration of how the mechanics and the artistry of speaking are intertwined. It's not just about saying the words correctly, it's about understanding their power
Yeah.
and using those tools to move, inspire, and connect with your audience.
This has been such a valuable deep dive, and I'm excited to see where it takes us next. We've explored the nuts and bolts of pronunciation, tackled some challenging tongue twisters, and even stepped into the shoes of a historical figure. So we've covered so much in this deep dive. It's amazing how much goes into making sure every word counts. But how does all this tie into the bigger picture? We've explored all these exercises and speeches,
Right.
but how can we use all this to make a difference every day?
Well, think about it.
Okay.
Every time you speak,
Yeah.
you're presenting yourself to the world.
Oh, that's interesting.
Whether it's a quick chat or a big presentation,
Mm-hmm.
the way you speak
Right.
influences how people see you
Makes sense.
and how they hear you.
So it's about more than just getting the point across. It's
Yeah.
also about the impression we make.
Exactly.
I can definitely see that. I know I've tuned out before. When someone's mumbling
Oh, yeah.
or mispronouncing words, it makes it hard to take them seriously,
Right.
even if what they're saying is important.
It's not about being judgmental.
Yeah.
It's human nature.
Right.
When someone speaks clearly and confidently,
Okay.
it says they respect themselves and their audience.
That's a good point.
That makes us more likely to listen.
It reminds me of that idea of an alert ear we talked about earlier.
Yes.
If we want others to listen,
Mm-hmm.
we need to be good listeners too.
Absolutely.
And that includes paying attention to our own voices.
It's a two-way street.
Right.
Think about the speakers you love listening to.
Okay.
The ones who just hold your attention.
Yeah.
They probably have a really strong command of language.
I bet.
It's not just what they say,
Right.
but how they say it.
They just draw you in.
Exactly.
And I bet that can really open doors in life,
You're right.
both personally and professionally.
Clear articulation and pronunciation can show confidence, credibility,
Yeah.
even warmth.
Okay.
That makes a huge difference.
For sure.
Whether you're trying to land a job,
Mm-hmm.
make new friends,
Yeah.
or just share your ideas with the world.
It's amazing how these small adjustments can change so much.
Yeah.
It's not about sounding smart. It's
No.
about connecting with people
Exactly.
and making sure your message hits home.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
This has been such a great deep dive.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
We've gone from the tiny details of pronunciation to how they can change our communication
Yes.
and help us reach our goals.
It's all connected.
So what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away today?
If I had to choose just one, it's this. Never underestimate the power of your voice.
Wow.
The way you speak
Yeah.
can inform, inspire, even change the world.
That's powerful.
So become a better communicator.
Yeah.
It's a gift to yourself and everyone who listens to you.
Beautifully said. And on that note,
Yes.
we'll leave you with this.
Okay.
Go out there and use your voice.
Yes.
Practice these techniques.
Mm-hmm.
Experiment with language.
Yeah.
And find your own voice.
The world is waiting to hear it.